You're just out of MICA, the School of Creativity and Communication. You went to corporate life, which is Sony. In 9 months, you realize you got to put the eject button, as you said. That took you to America, right?
Yeah.
But I'm putting myself into your shoes as a student, as a person in his 20s. Menstruation. How many of kids, boys, will think that? And you took that leap of faith, that decision. I just want to reflect back on that milestone in your life. And I want to ask you, how has that shaped you?
I am actually very proud, of course, but happy that I took this decision. Because what it did for me is that it eliminated a huge blind side that would have otherwise existed in my understanding of people and life. So I have always had these two goals in my life, that I want to help people smile a little more, and I want to do whatever I do, that as soon as they fall on their bed, within 5 minutes they should go to sleep.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Indian Diaspora Podcast. Today, we have a very exciting guest with us. He's Professor Arpan Yagnik, who's a professor at Penn State University in the field of communication. Professor Arpan's mission in life is to help defeat fear in everybody's life and helping people meet their true potential. Professor Arpan, thank you for joining us. How are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you so much, Rahul, for having me on Indian Diaspora.
Thank you. Thank you. It's our pleasure. It's our honor. So, Arpan, you are a rather unusual creative professional. You are a professor. You have worked in advertisement and communications in the past. You have done your PhD in this field, and you work in helping people defeat fear, right? So we'll understand more about you by starting about your journey. Talk to us. Where were you born?
I was born in a city called Vadodara or Baroda, and that's where I spent early 2-3 years of my life. That's where I went to my first school, and then my father moved to Ahmedabad. He took up a role in Entrepreneurship Development Institute of India. So we moved to Ahmedabad, and then I went to 3 different schools in Ahmedabad, and I was a mischievous kid, rather. I often used to get punishment for talking a lot in the class, or rather disturbing the teacher. The punishment at that time was I was put or made to sit between 2 girls. So that was the punishment, sitting between 2 girls. What would happen is that invariably after 15-20 days, the parents of those girls would start complaining to the teachers that what has happened, our girls are talking a lot these days. So I was one of those kids who was mischievous. Respectful is the other thing, that is how I would explain myself or describe myself. I have always been respectful of my teachers. So I was maybe a little naughty, mischievous. I was good, above average in studies, but always respectful and a teacher's pet. Till this date, I am a teacher's pet. I've grown up in, so those 3 schools belonged to 3 different communities. So it was a very rich cultural and diverse heritage-based learning of those 3 various communities that were that had created the school. So I got exposed and introduced to a whole lot of different diverse cultures and people of India, names of India, surnames
Hmm.
of India, cuisines of India. So
Hmm.
my early education was very rich.
Hmm.
And I'm very fond of my school time. It was a great time, some great teachers that still remain a part of my life even today. And every day, every other day, I will get some or the other thing from them, which is a motivation for me to do what I do. I After my schooling, I moved into St. Xavier's College, and that's where I, got exposed to a different type of individuals and communities, so on and so forth. And from there, I went to MICA, and this is again a melting pot of entire India. And we also had some participants from abroad. So I got to experience practically the entire nation in its rich diversity, very much within Ahmedabad. And Ahmedabad is an educational hub. I love the city. I still love it. I never ever wanted to leave it. And that's why I sort of kept saying no to a lot of things that kept coming my way, just because they would uh, kick me out of Ahmedabad. So I I did not. And finally, when I accepted an offer from Sony, I was told that
Hmm.
either I will be posted in Pune or Chandigarh. And I was so sad about that. But then magically, when the offer letter came, I was posted in Ahmedabad as head of Gujarat.
Hmm.
So Ahmedabad did not leave me. I did not want to leave Ahmedabad. But
Hmm.
then when Ahmedabad, the city, and I personify it because I have a deep love and admiration for the city. So I personify it. So when Ahmedabad realized that um, I needed to grow. I needed to grow as a human being. I needed
Hmm.
to cultivate and hone my skills, practice them in different environment. It kicked me hard. That breakup was hard, but it was definitely worth it. And I that's why I love and cherish the city so much, because it kicked me and let me go at the right time.
Hmm.
Because at that time,
So, Professor Arpan, we'll take a pause here, right?
yeah,
So you're born in Ahmedabad and Vadodara, and you spend your time in Ahmedabad. For international people in the diaspora, you may not know this or know this. It's in Gujarat, the state in the western part of India where our Prime Minister Modi comes from. It's an amazing state. That said, Professor, you were born in Gujarat. You were gregarious, talkative as a kid. Um, Talk to me about your journey from that to MICA, right? And also educate us about MICA. What is MICA? For those in the field of creativity, all of them know MICA, right?
yeah.
Tell us about MICA and your journey from that talkative kid to the hub of creativity that is MICA.
So the talkative kid also had another side. And that another side was that I was also extremely shy.
Hmm.
I can very vividly remember that if my mother asked me that go and give this little thing to our neighbor, I would climb down our stairs, walk a little, climb up their stairs, and then that's it. Life would stop over there.
Hmm.
Like, should I ring the bell? No, I'm shy. I don't want to go. Even till this date, I catch myself that if my family and I, if we are visiting someone, just
Hmm.
as we are about to approach the door to ring the bell, I will just go back. I'll become the last one in the row. So this is also the other side to that same talkative and rather extrovert kind of a person who can go and speak with anyone. This is also the other side. I don't know how they both coexist, but I like it because that shyness or that timidness, it makes me think and reflect. It makes me more perceptive in many ways. So now imagine this side having to enter MICA. So let me tell people about MICA. MICA is a melting pot of all the different cultures and creative proclivities, creative expressions that come together in one little village called Shela and Guma, which is in the outskirts of Ahmedabad. And I was in St. Xavier's College. I was completing my bachelor's in economics. And I had originally intended to be part of, like, I'll do my economics and then master's and MPhil and all of that. And I wanted to be in the planning commission. Um, then life, like a river, wants you to meander. So MICA came about because I was preparing for all those, IIMs and the CAT exams and all these entrance exams like everyone else. And I eventually landed in MICA. And MICA had started this amazing course on retail. The specialization was on retail and communication. And I ended up in that course. However, there is another gem in MICA. This is in my professional as well as personal evaluation and understanding, called CCC, Crafting Creative Communication. This course is a transformational course. I was not part of that course, but we shared so many classes with that course. So, like, we were honorary members of that course, and we got exposed to this amazing individuals that would come and challenge us in ways that we had never been challenged, at least for me. And that is actually where the bug of creativity caught me. MICA was set up as a premier communications management institute in India. And there was a major need in media and communication for professionals. The media landscape was increasing. The Star TVs and the Z TVs and the Sony TVs were entering satellite television. Radios were flourishing with Radio Mirchi and all those other things. So there was a need for trained media professionals. Who was producing them? Well, MICA was the one. So today, you take any communication or media organization in India or many in abroad, in the top 2 tier of the organization, you will invariably find a MICA. So this is what the impact of MICA has been in media research, in advertising, and in other media careers and professions and organizations. It has been a solid, foundational experience that prepares individuals. So I remember the director then was Professor Atul Tandon, who was very lovingly known as PAT, P-A-T, Professor Atul Tandon. This is what he would say that to the parents who would come to drop their children to MICA, because it was so far in a remote place, that you drop your child at the gates of MICA, and I guarantee you that the child you leave and say goodbye at the gate of MICA will not be the same when you meet them back when you come during their graduation. We will transform them. And they did. They did. It was a transformative experience for so many individuals, because it just made them flourish in that little microcosm and micro ecosystem. So I hope people get a good understanding of what MICA is. And I'll tell you, in amongst our batch, we had decided that after 15, 20 years of us being, doing whatever we did in the world, if there was one course in the world that we wanted to come back to, as like, those executive leadership or so on, so forth courses, that would be CCC. That's the kind of stuff that actually happens in so many different, top tier institutions, and they charge so much money. And here, with so much love and grace, MICA offers that CCC to so many It's the untouched, rather I would say,
Hmm.
an underexplored gem of MICA,
Hmm.
CCC.
Got it. Arpan, you first of all, thank you for describing MICA. I want to say India has always had excellent institutions. We have the IITs, we have the IMs,
Yes,
we have the National School of Design, and a lot of Indians from the diaspora actually come to the great institutions in India
yes.
and get their education, right? And MICA is one of those stalwarts in the education space. And you also have reflected upon the duality that you were in your childhood, which is a blend of creativity, but also, sorry, being an extrovert, but also being an introvert. And a lot of people listening to this might be able to relate with you there. So from there, moving to MICA, getting shaped in the crucible of MICA,
Mhm.
and then becoming a creative and a communications professional. So now talk to me about the journey in Sony and beyond. So when you came to Gujarat, how did that unfold for you?
So immediately after MICA, I joined Sony. And Sony, I have a funny incident about it. The very first day, it was 2nd July
Hmm.
2007. And
Hmm.
my friend, who's also from MICA, and one more person, we were all joining that day. And we were invited to the Sony headquarters in New Delhi. And
Hmm.
we were put up in this guest house in GK2, which is an area in New Delhi, Greater Kailash. A car comes and picks us up. This is also amazing. And the car drops us in front of a building which is all Sony. And I was so surprised. There was a red carpet. There were all these incredibly beautiful three young women holding bouquets with
Hmm.
all like red roses and this bunch of other things, and like a full a welcome wagon had been. I was so happy that wow, they really treat their people really well.
Hmm.
So i I start going towards that red carpet because there was nobody else. Suddenly
Hmm.
this one guy and comes, hey, you go from the other side, this is not for you. That day, the number two in Sony from Japan was
Hmm.
coming, and all this was for him. We didn't know, or at least I didn't know. I was very naive, and or I chose to be naive. And so, we had to be taken from the other side and all of that. But Sony, the culture was again another great experience that I had. The culture, that traditional Sony culture, is something that I'm deeply proud of.
Hmm.
Um, of course, different market forces, changes in leadership, it does give a new twist to the
Hmm.
culture. And that
Hmm.
remains one of my biggest regrets, that the culture, the original culture of Sony started getting diluted because individuals from different organizations who came from very different aggressive competitive cutthroat culture, they started diluting the culture. So I had a great time, but my issue at that time was I was 22 years old, and I realized that my learning curve was stagnating and going down. I was not
Hmm.
learning new things. I was executing, I was applying things that I had learned, and then what I was learning on the job, but I was not learning. And in about 9 months, I realized that I I did not want to spend the rest of my life ensuring the smooth movement of boxes from point A to point B.
Hmm.
So then I just started looking for an eject button, and it took me 2.5 years because while I was working, I had to prepare for the entrance exams, so on and so forth. I finally pressed the eject button, and it. This is the kick that I was telling you, that when Ahmedabad kicked me, it kicked me all the way
Hmm.
to America. So that is when I landed in America. to do my PhD under the amazing guidance of Professor Srinivas Melkote. And
Hmm.
he still remains my friend, philosopher, guide, like many other teachers from my schools and professors from MICA, so on and so forth. So
Hmm.
that PhD was in menstruation. Now, it was
Mhm.
a weird leap and a jump for me. I come from economics and statistics in my undergrad, and then retail communication, then hardcore retail business, all that, and then moving into menstruation and
Hmm.
communication. Well, what
Hmm.
had happened is that I heard this one gentleman speak about their work during the times of calamities. And they said that food and shelter is what everyone works. But what about clothes? And if there is a tornado or a cyclone or floods,
Hmm. Hmm.
menstruation does not stop. The menstrual needs of women are still intact, whether you are in a condition or a situation of crises or otherwise.
Mhm.
This stayed with me. And I was also at that time looking for things to work in which had a broader impact. I did not want to pick things that impacted only a few thousand people. This was my thinking. I wanted to
Mhm.
pick up issues and problems that impacted, the entire humanity or millions or billions of people. And I was going to do a PhD in communication, and I realized that menstruation is an issue where communication is the problem. Lack of communication, miscommunication is a problem, and directly 50% of individuals on the planet get impacted by it, and indirectly the other 50%. I mean, I'm just saying. So it was something that I thought would be a worthy challenge to put my intellectual faculties to use to.
Mhm.
And
Now, I want to take a pause there. So this is great story, right? You're just out of MICA, the School of Creativity and Communication. You went to corporate life, which is Sony. In 9 months, you realize you got to put the eject button, as you said. That took you to America, right?
yeah.
But I'm putting myself into your
Mhm.
shoes, right? As a student, as a person in his 20s. And you did describe the reason, but menstruation. How many of kids, boys, will think that? And you took that leap of faith, that decision. I just want to reflect back on that milestone in your life. And I want to ask you, how has that shaped you? Do you, reflecting back on your decision that you took in that early stage to where you are now, right? How do you reflect back on that decision of pursuing PhD in this space?
I am actually very, well, proud, yeah, of course, but happy that I took this decision.
Hmm.
Because what it did for me is that it eliminated a huge blind side that would have otherwise existed in my understanding of people
Hmm.
and life.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, and blind side is that portion, like, in the when you are driving, which you cannot see through your mirrors. And
Hmm.
it's a dangerous, and we also have blind sides in our knowledge, like say diya tale andera. So that
Hmm.
darkness right underneath the well lit lamp, or on the other side,
Hmm.
we also have so many of these blind spots.
Hmm.
Unless there is a certain grace or a certain effort through that grace, these blind sides don't get removed. So I got to
Hmm.
understand the issues that girls and women have to
Hmm.
face, and go through just as part of their regular normal existence, and
Hmm.
how the society is reacting to that, sometimes strongly, sometimes affectionately, sometimes discriminatorily. All of these
Hmm.
things, I think it enriched me as a person. It
Hmm.
gives me one extra lens to see
Hmm.
someone when
Hmm.
they are, really working hard just to keep their job.
Hmm. Arpan, I want to bring more empathy here to this topic, right? For a lot of our diaspora audiences, they might not have the cultural environment that India had where you're growing up. Could you give some examples of the challenges that women face around menstruation in India? Some specific examples that could highlight the issues.
So we had a very good understanding of menstruation um, early on, but control is a very bad thing. So social control, societal control, for that the generations of or the generation of taboos and stigmas come into place. And taboos and stigmas are just the blind adherence to some things that may now be anachronistic. So we have often heard that, like in extreme cases, that women are placed in some huts along with animals for 3-4 days when they are menstruating. This is very well documented.
Hmm.
Um, this this jingoistic, anachronistic practice is what I have a problem with. I
Hmm.
like let me think about this, or let me talk about this in a way that people can understand it from a balanced perspective. Rather, it is very easy for me to sensationalize and that, oh, things
Hmm.
are happening like this. Um, but a a taboo or a stigma is a means of social control. We
Hmm.
need to keep people. So many different taboos and stigmas were created.
Hmm.
Now, when we think about menstruation, early, not 200 years, but 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, isolation and disinfection, like keeping things clean and neat, they were the only two ways of dealing with diseases or any kind of infections or any kind of illnesses. You would
Hmm.
isolate the person so that they, when I say isolate, not you give them the space that is needed to recover.
Hmm.
There are so many different changes, the chemical changes happening in the body, the illness is taking place. And please, menstruation is not an illness.
Hmm.
Many similar things happen at the time of menstruation where there are chemical changes in the body. There are different things that happen in your body. You yourself, if you're not fully aware, don't understand why these changes are happening. And there is pains and aches and changes in the mood, bloating, changes in self-esteem, self-efficacy, confidence. And they need some rest. They need to be away, because otherwise it's unpredictable. You may lash out or you suddenly start crying. So,
Hmm.
not to be generalizing any of these, but these are some of the
Yeah.
general symptoms that a girl, a woman has to go through.
Hmm.
And therefore, they need some time off. Um, Now, we, we live in a different society. So, we don't need that level of isolation and some of the other things. We have better means to manage menstruation, to
Hmm.
continue our daily life, and there is more education, there is more understanding, so we can
Hmm.
predict that, oh, these changes I can expect or anticipate in the next few days. And if
Hmm.
it's a much more healthier environment, then the woman will also educate the partner or the people around that, hey, these are the things that you can anticipate. Please be kind, please understand that it's not, it's a different avatar of me
Hmm.
that needs to happen. So
Hmm.
it it is something which is complex. It is something which is complicated because
Hmm.
of this stigma and the taboo.
Yeah.
People don't, and it's not something that you always have to talk about. But there is a
Yeah.
healthy amount of conversation that needs to happen about it at certain
Hmm.
phases and stages in life. Uh,
Hmm.
the onset of menstruation is a very different experience from when menopause hits.
Hmm.
There is a whole lot of work happening on menopause right now, because um, women are finding it extremely difficult to deal with menopause and the changes, especially the chemical changes that it brings in their body, and the subsequential or rather subsequent changes in their persona at that
Yeah,
time.
no, absolutely.
So it's yeah,
Arpan, in a country with that worships its women as goddesses,
mhm,
as Kali Ma, as Durga Ma, right?
yeah,
And a country where rapes happen every day, right? Uh, the least men can do and families can do is educate themselves, right? And just empathize
empathize,
on.
and we have moved far too away from dharma.
Hmm,
When I say dharma, I means kartavya, duty. When I say
hmm,
dharma, I don't mean religion. It's
hmm,
the duty. That understanding of duty of a human being towards other human beings. When there is a corrosion or corruption in the understand, and you start doing whatever comes to your mind, this is
hmm.
when such so moving away from dharma is
Yeah,
resulting in so many sad and bad things. uh,
yeah.
we have to be a duty driven society.
Hmm,
Instead, there is we are becoming more and more rights driven, while ignoring the duty or looking less at the duties. Duties have to come first. What is my duty towards this environment, to this
hmm,
particular tree, this particular animal, this particular person, women in general? So there are the general duties, and then there are specific duties that one has to fulfill as a father, as a son, as a brother, or as a mother.
hmm,
So this movement away from the understanding of duties and strict adherence to it
hmm,
is what is causing, in Hindi or Gujarati, it is known as manmani, manmana. I do whatever my my whims and fancies command.
hmm,
That's not um, a recipe for a harmonious society. That's the recipe
hmm,
for disaster.
hmm. I love that. You are more duty bound more than uh, rights bound, right?
Yes.
You're less entitled, and you have more dharma and the feeling of serving.
Yes.
Coming back to your
Yeah.
journey, Professor Arpan. So your PhD, right? You did your PhD in menstruation or
Yes. So
menstruation
it was
communication.
my
What was
PhD
that field?
was in the longer story is the role of mass media in destigmatizing the menstrual taboo. That was,
Got it.
and as part of my PhD, I did a baseline study of knowledge, attitude, practices, and
Okay.
cognitive and behavioral involvement, both men
Okay.
and women, in menstruation as well as menstrual hygiene management.
Got it. Thank you for specifying that. So from that to your journey towards being a professor in communication at Penn State University, how was that transition for you? And why did you choose that direction?
So I have always had these two goals in my life, that I
Mhm.
want to help people smile a little more, and I want to do whatever I do, that as soon as they
Mhm.
fall on their bed, within 5 minutes they should go to sleep. So I have always kept looking for ways to influence these two things. I want people to smile a little more, and I want people to sleep better, um, so that they can be more productive and useful, and more duty bound, and not just, if you have not slept, if you're sleep deprived, you just keep thinking
Mhm.
of yourself, because you need that sleep. So anyhow, um, that I wanted to be in a research. The other thing is, I wanted a life where I have time for my thoughts. I have a time to myself. And academia is this area where um, you have that time for your thoughts, that churning, the inner churning that happens. and you have the ability to write and express, and that becomes so. From my job in Sony, which was about the movement of boxes from point A to point B, now my job role is to create new knowledge and disseminate it. So I do that. I create new knowledge, new understanding. I try to eliminate those blind spots, the areas of darkness or ignorance. I try to eliminate those slowly. You cannot do it in one. I'm not that amazing yet, but I would love to be one day. And that's what I do now.
So I love that. You became a professor in communication because you want to make people smile. Is that correct?
Yes.
That is beautiful. I want to then, with that thought, transition to the topic of fear.
Mm.
Right? You are passionate about defeating fear
Yes,
and helping people reach their true potential.
that's right.
Right?
Well,
Let's reflect back upon your journey so far. We saw you're born in Ahmedabad. You said, Vadodara. You said you were introvertish,
yeah.
talkative, right? Went to the creative school, worked in corporate. Something good is about you is that you always wanted to learn.
Mm-hmm.
You went towards mass communication in menstruation, PhD topic, went through that, and now became a professor. So it's been an amazing journey of growth, reflection, course correction, and a meaning, right?
Yeah.
In all this journey, where did helping people conquer their fear come into your heart, your mind, your soul? And talk to me why this has become your mission in life.
So I am deeply in love with freedom. And I used to have these in-depth discussions with my advisor, Professor Melkote, when he was working on his book on freedom.
Okay.
And we would talk about, and he would explain about the freedom from and the freedom to, and the life politics and emancipatory politics. And then at the same time, I was also the freedom to elevate yourself from the worldly affairs. So freedom is very important, and freedom comes, for the longest time it came to me in terms of the power to say no. I was able to say no to so many things. I've said no to so many things. It just struck me one day that anyone and everyone who is living under the influence of any kind of fear is not free, because they are living under the influence of fear. And then I realized that everyone is living under the influence of one or the other kind of fear. There are very few people who are so liberated that they are living fearlessly. And I myself have gone through my journeys of fear. And it has prevented me. It has created hesitations. It has created apprehensions. So fear is a weird thing. It's an inhibitor, but then it is also a motivator. Regardless, I don't care. I don't want my life to be inspired by fear. That is what I had decided. My life can be inspired by so many other beautiful things, such as creativity or peace or happiness, but not by fear. So I started on my...
Mr. Yagnik, sorry for interrupting you. Where does fear come from? In your observation, why do people have fear?
So I very strongly believe that fear is a subjective reality. I say so because not everyone is afraid of spider in the same home. There are two people in the home that are afraid of the spider, and two who are not. But for those two who are afraid, it is reality. And it is subjective because there are only two people that are afraid of it. The other two are not. So it is not objectively spread all across in equity. What you are afraid of is not something that I'm afraid of. So depending on the age, stage, and situation of your life, people end up becoming afraid of different things. So it is a subjective reality.
Doesn't fear keep us alive as well, right? I mean, if you're next to a cliff and you could fall, wouldn't the fear of falling or heights keep you alive?
Uh, but that very fear can paralyze you in that moment, and you can go through a panic attack where your brain's connection with your body is completely severed. You
Hmm.
cannot, if you want to move your hand from here to here in that time of panic attack, when you are so frightened, you cannot
Hmm.
move that.
Hmm.
People cannot breathe when they are experiencing that kind of fear, panic, terror.
Hmm.
So and of course we want to be alive, we want to preserve our life. So that primal fear to make sure that we continue to live, it is there. And it helps us stay alert, stay cautious, and stay alive. But then there are
Hmm.
so many other fears which are very illusory in nature. Like, there is someone will say that there's no reason to be afraid of spiders. There is no reason to be afraid of mathematics. Well, you are right. But what about the person who is experiencing that? And the other interesting thing is that knowledge has a weird relation with fear. All
Hmm.
your knowledge evaporates. I knew
Hmm.
that in Ohio, in a recreation center of my university, the swimming pool over there were not going to be any sharks. But I still was
Hmm.
not able to jump from that springboard into the water for 45 minutes because I was afraid that as soon as I jump, some shark will come and it will, bite my leg off.
Hmm.
I knew that this is completely irrational. This is
Hmm.
just not reality.
Hmm.
But I still stood there for 45 minutes. And there are other incidents. There are so many different people, especially after COVID. The
Hmm.
kingdom of fear has become much more grave. The fear of losing your loved ones.
Hmm.
I mean, it's very normal and natural, you would think, but now it has gone to an extent where it is impeding lives and routines of people. They cannot focus on their studies, they cannot focus on their work. They are taking such extreme stress and worry that they are
Hmm.
paralyzing themselves as well as the ones that they love so
Hmm.
much.
Hmm. So I think we have understood fear here and the balance that fear provides, but also not being shackled by it, right?
Mhm.
Now I want to understand, how do you help people conquer fear? What are the tools you use in your toolkit through your life's experiences and where you are as a professor
Yeah.
of communication to help dispel fear from the lives of people?
So one of the biggest tool coming from a communication point of view is the intrapersonal communication. Most of my work, as I reflect, has been on intrapersonal communication, how you communicate with your own self. So in fear also, what are you telling yourself? What is being communicated? How is it being interpreted? What sort of meaning making? What sort of imagination? What sort of imagery is being created within you? All
Mhm.
this, there are routes in our brain and our cognition. So disrupting some of those, recreating, rewiring, creating, those jump starts, they help with defeating fear. But not every time. There are so many different types and uh, versions of fear that there is no one medicine that you can give. There are
Mhm.
different people, different. So intrapersonal communication is one big one. Certain realizations, certain understanding is one thing. For many people, their absolute unshakable faith is how. And when I say faith, faith in something, faith in their leader, faith in their God, faith in their parent, faith in their partner, faith in their pet.
Hmm.
In that moment, it completely helps them get rid of their fear. So that absolute unshakable faith is the other thing. The most ultimate way, which is hard to, is through, of course, a knowledge-driven enlightenment, where you reach a stage. Not everyone gets there, but it's also one of the aspects of toolkits. And I'll give you two more after this. That you reach a stage where everything is one. And when everything is one, then there is no another. So when there is no another, then there is no fear of another. But this understanding, this realization, the logics behind it, the scientific rationales behind reaching this conclusive destination, where we can see every one and everything and every thought as one and no another, is a slight challenge and an uphill thing. There are two other things that often help people. I ask people that what is this one time when there is no fear in you? The one time when there is no fear in the entire human existence is when they are laughing out loud. You know, that LOL and ROFL.
Yeah.
When you are laughing out loud, that ROFL, there is no fear. It just evaporates. Something changes. There are chemical changes that happen in us when we laugh. So the trick, the work has to be there, that how can I simulate that chemical balance, that chemical constitution, without actually having to laugh? Because, I mean, if I did a workshop and I asked everyone, on an average, how much do you laugh? I mean, they were just giving some random answers, because no one ever thinks about how much do you laugh on a daily basis. They were saying,
And as kids,
huh?
Professor Arpan, as kids, how much did we used to laugh?
So much, all the time, for no good reason. That's what
Right.
we ended up doing so much. So, but now as you grow up, people don't laugh for even for 5 minutes in a week. And then there are some unfortunate individuals, and my heart goes to them, who don't laugh for 5 minutes even in an entire month. So lives have become very, very challenging in some ways, and we have lost our track in terms of how to conduct our life. Why do we have this life? What is the goal and purpose of this life? How rare this life, human birth, where we can think, we can change, we can adjust. This is so rare and so precious, but we are just squandering it on things. So, and then the last thing about one in the toolkit, that there are more, but for the time, is you have to take a stock of the different fears that exist in your life, be it of water, of darkness, of some insect, of beards, of the sound of coins, or the cars, the driving, flying, whatever. There are exams, interviews, injections, syringes, so many different types of fears. You have to, after you take a stock, then you have to ask the question to yourself, is this particular fear a guest in my life or a host of my life? A guest has limited power and a host has an unlimited power. So once this realization, oh, this is a host and oh, this is the guest. So first thing to do is kick all the guests out. We don't want these unwanted guests. And then there are some ways to do so. But just for all the listeners, that take a stock of all the fears and just identify which fear has become a host of your life, which is influencing and dictating you all the time, and which one is a guest in your life that comes sporadically and then changes some of the dynamics and then goes away. Just when you do this, then you will be able to eliminate so many of them very quickly.
Well said, Professor Arpan. This also reminds me what Buddha said. Buddha said, everything shall pass.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So make your fears or your worries the guest in your life. I love that.
Yeah.
We'll move to the next segment of our discussion, which is around the Indian diaspora.
Mm-hmm.
So you're here, a professor in America,
Yes.
which is a very coveted position to be in. You have a life of balance in which you can pursue your creative interests, you can make impact to the society,
Mm-hmm.
and you have your roots in India.
Yes.
And I'm assuming it's been a long time since you have left India, right?
Right.
I want to begin by asking, what does India mean to you?
Um, India or Bharat is, is this part of me that, like a shadow, follows me. It's it stays in the way I talk, the way I think, the way I process. So Bharat, India, and like being Indian, being Bharatiya, it is so ingrained in me that all the exposure of the world, it enriches that. But this is the core ethos. And actually, I am its shadow. It is not my shadow. The sanskars, or the way to conduct yourself, the understanding and interpretation of life, this is what becomes the guiding force of your thoughts, actions, decisions, and your conduct towards
Mm,
yourself, people around you, the environment, so on and so forth. So i I love spending time in India. I spend a lot of time in India. I travel so much across India, all the way from up north to down south to east to west, and it keeps enriching you. It's like water to me. You need water, and I need India. One of the
mm,
first understanding, I'll just touch base on this. The diaspora. You use the word diaspora.
mhm,
My first understanding of the breadth and the vastness of Indian diaspora came because I was a certified DJ, and I started. When I say DJ, it means RJ, radio jockey,
mhm,
an FCC certified one, which is the
mhm,
federal body in the US. And I was
mhm,
helping my advisor do the radio show called Music of India and its Diaspora.
mhm,
So we used to do this show, and through that show, and by doing that show, I realized that what richness of diaspora exists from the music point of view. Of course, then you can take the food point of view, and so on and
mhm,
so forth. There is something called cultural refrigerator, cultural freezer. Our diaspora lives in a cultural freezer. The words that they use, the practices are from maybe 50 years or 20 years ago, from the time when they came to a different part of the world, when they migrated. They have kept those intact. So, some of the oldest ways and versions of how to live and conduct our duties are very well preserved in the diaspora, Indian diaspora, all across the world, which has migrated 2, 3, 4 generations ago. So, this way of looking towards the diaspora has helped me
mhm,
respect it and do a lot more for it.
mm. Excellent answer. You are a shadow of India, and we cannot leave our roots. We cannot leave our India wherever we are. But we equally love our karma bhumi, right?
Yes,
Your karma bhumi is the United States of America.
absolutely.
What does America mean to you, Professor Yagnik?
America means, as you rightly pointed out, karma bhumi.
Hmm.
All that I have to do for this country, and every effort to ensure that this country is also as rich, as healthy, and as wealthy in terms of ideas and thoughts. The very ethos of this nation is of tinkering. An American is a perpetual tinkerer. And the worst form of poverty is the poverty of ideas. When there is so much, you become um, extreme that your ideas, the ability to imagine, the abilities to ideate goes down. That's the worst form of poverty. So in my karma bhumi here, I try and ensure that I eradicate this poverty of ideas and thoughts through my teaching, through my research. I have been involved in various initiatives at the city level, in the cities that I have lived. I have worked against any and every form of hate and intolerance. I have worked with the governors, commissions in certain aspects, with the mayor. So I involve myself in all these things. I give time. I work with little kids in the libraries and read them stories of the hungry caterpillar in different languages so that they hear different things, as well as go and work with the seniors on decluttering and fear and some of the other pressing aspects that they are going through as being part of this ecosystem. And I also immerse in fun things such as doing the polka with the different. Mostly it's seniors, younger generation doesn't come, and that's that. The breakage is unfortunate rather. So engaging with them in the festivities of Oktoberfest, Schutzen Festival, so on and so forth. So this Karma Bhumi is very important to me. It has given me the ability to think further, to develop further, to understand science. What does science mean? What are the advantages? What are the limitations? So I'm greatly indebted to this Karma Bhumi, and whatever dharma I have to follow, whatever duties I have to do, I do them over here. I discharge them over here till the time I get a call from the motherland, Ahmedabad, and if it creates situations where it goes beyond me, just how it created situations where it kicked me out, it also has the ability to
Yeah.
invite me back
And
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 bring
you
me.
keep on traveling to India on various assignments,
I do.
correct? So
Yes.
that's how you stay in touch.
Yes.
That's amazing. So, Arpan, how many years has it been since you left India?
15.
15.
Yeah.
In this 15 years, if you reflect back, how has America changed you? How does being Indian American identity changed you?
Um, it has given me what I would say is this amazing ability to discern or discriminate, and not the negative usage of discriminate, the ability to distinguish, discern between what is good in this society and what is not good in this society. It has given me a lens, a discerning lens. Being an Indian American, it has given me an understanding of what does it feel like to be in a minority. What does it feel like to be in a minority that is cherished and celebrated, actually? So, amongst all the minorities, Indian Americans are cherished and celebrated the most.
Yeah,
So, it has provided me with this discerning positionality
yeah,
where it makes me aware of how privileged I am and how
yeah,
underprivileged I am,
yeah,
and how that empathy piece, that what are the
mm,
struggles and challenges for someone
yeah,
who has different privileges, but
yeah,
they all have their challenges and they all have their
yeah,
struggles. So the least of the things that I can do for them and towards them
yeah.
is to be kind.
Sure, sure. Beautifully reflected. Now, you mentioned the Indian American community is much celebrated here in
Mhm.
the United States of America. Why is that?
Well, there are two or three reasons, I would say. One is that for the most part, they have coexisted peacefully. They
Hmm.
only a certain privileged bunch of individuals, at least in earlier days, were able to
Mm.
make it, and they came here for the pursuit of higher education or
Mm-hmm.
more business, and they initially did not, in my understanding, come with the notion that we are going to come here and settle. We are going to learn and then go back and then, maybe set up some. But when the settling started, also the Indian ethos is a very friendly ethos. There are certain, sanskars, learnings that are ingrained in us that make us smile a lot more easier. Smiling is easy for us, is what I
Mm.
feel. And our understanding of, um, this, who a neighbor is and how we are
Mm.
lovingly towards them. So how
Mm.
we are loving towards them, because the neighbor is the first relative.
Mm.
We have, these first responders,
Yeah.
emergency responders.
Yeah.
All across India, neighbor is the first responder.
Mm.
Anything happens, they are the first one to know. They are the first ones. These are the individuals to whom we entrust the keys to our homes
Yeah.
and our heart.
And that's what I think Vasudeva Kutumbakam means, right?
Vasudhaiva
The world
Kutumbakam
is.
is
Hmm.
very beautiful, and it's very, very grand.
Hmm.
It is very,
Hmm.
very grand. It is all encompassing. It is
Yeah.
about the cosmos.
Hmm. The world is one family, and we are part of it.
Yes, yes. So so
Yeah.
so these are some of the understandings, and they have contributed back to the economy. They have lived over
Yeah.
here now, first generation, second generation. Their kids are doing very well in education. So these are some of the reasons. So
Yeah.
there are two ways. There is a symbiotic existence, and
Hmm.
there is a parasitic existence.
Sure. Yeah.
Whether we have a symbiotic existence or whether we have a
Mhm.
parasitic existence, we cannot judge any value. It
Yeah.
is only the land in which we live. It is their privilege and prerogative to decide that.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. So we'll move to the last few questions of our
Yes.
discussion here. We'll move to a fun rapid fire
Hmm.
segment. I'm going to be asking you questions. Don't think, just let it go out.
Yeah.
Right? And these will be fun questions.
Okay.
Okay. What's your favorite food?
Ooh, khichdi.
Best place to travel in India?
At the moment, it is to Udupi,
Hmm. Best place to travel in America?
New Jersey.
An underrated Indian personality that the world should know about?
The world should know about Dr. Bhaskar Rao. He is the
Hmm.
father of social science in India, and he is the man who brought exit polls. He's a
Hmm.
brilliant individual, such a
Hmm.
loving individual, cares so deeply about the community, and the amount of work he does, I don't think I can do in my next 17 births.
Hmm. Beautiful. An Indian American personality that Indians in India and the diaspora around the world should know about?
Uh, Dr. Srinivas Melkote.
Hmm. Talk to us more about him.
He has done in amazing and incredible work on development, social justice, empowerment, and he's a theorist and
Hmm.
very rich. But most importantly, he's just an amazing individual. You should just
Hmm.
pleasure to be in and around him, in his
Hmm.
classrooms and around him.
Lovely. Next, India for me is
Nostalgic,
America for me is
euphoric.
lovely. Lovely. Great answers. You pass all the questions. Professor, you pass all the questions. Moving on to the last two questions. What do you want your legacy to be?
My legacy has to be, or I should be recognized as someone who has helped reduce the overall fear quotient on the planet.
That's 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 a powerful one, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to be inspired by that statement. And my last question to you is, imagine the diaspora. Our viewers are from Australia, New Zealand, Africa, Kenya, Tanzania, Europe, um, India, and of course, United States, Canada, the entire world. India is changing, and you keep on traveling to India. You're very rooted in India. What's your message to the diaspora about the new India?
The new India that is coming up is a much more grounded India.
Hmm.
It wants to increase its contribution in the growth and prosperity of the world because it is rooted in its understanding of its duties towards the world. And this is the new India, and we all, through our own means, have an obligation and have a duty to contribute, increase our footprint in the contribution
Hmm.
to India's
Hmm.
contribution to the world.
Hmm. Well said. With that, we will close our podcast here. Thank you, Professor Arpan Yagnik. It was a very reflective discussion on your journey in life, uh, the identity of turning into an Indian American, what India means to you,
Mhm.
uh, and very important, conquering fear in your life to reach your potential.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us. Everybody, have a very good day. Thank you. Bye bye.